Everybody, Ben here for the Bonehead podcast, and welcome to Top 5 Friday. Every Friday we get together and we have a look at the top 5, something probably to do with Blood Bowl. Now, we've been working our way through the skills of the game, defining them by type of skill, and this week we are going to be looking at the top 5 agility skills in the game. Now, we put a post out on Monday, we put a post out every Monday for our top 5 Friday, and we got a load of great suggestions. What I'm going to do in this video is go through what my top 5 agility skills are, and then we'll have a look and see how right or wrong I was compared to all of the great feedback that we had. Now, the difficult thing here with agility skills, very much like some of the other ones we've had a look at, is it can be very difficult to determine what skill to use without knowing what player. So I've gone for the top 5 kind of average agility skill, but we will talk through some of the other ones as well and which skills these players, which skills are great on which players. Anyway, let's have a look at my top 5. My number 5 is Sidestep. Now, Sidestep is an awesome little skill. Basically, if you get punched and you would be pushed or powed down, you get to choose where you're going to go. And it's not just the typical slot. So if you get pushed and it's normally this way and you go 1, 2, 3, one of those 3 squares, you get to choose any adjacent empty square for your player. Now, if you've played against Nobblars, you've played against Snotlings, you will know how frustrating it can be because they get to choose where to die. And I guarantee that they are going to be choosing the square that stops you from moving through. They might be able to move backwards toward their troll. If they're looking to get closer to the end zone, they might be able to move forward towards the end zone. Now, that's all great. The difficulty here is that Sidestep does not stop you from being punched, and if you get punched, it doesn't stop you from dying. But it combos really well with those players that have dodge, that have block and dodge as well. So Snotlings get away with this because they've got that dodge ability, and that means that they're not going down quite so often, and it can give you free squares of movement. This is the kind of skill that's incredibly useful on a War Dancer. Strength 3, got dodge, got block, they're not going down very often. If your opponent pushes them, if your opponent punches them, the likelihood here is that they are going to get to move 1 square closer to where they want to go. It's great for extra speed, so it can be used to keep your guys moving towards the end zone. It's great for staying on target as well. So if you've got a War Dancer is a great example. If you want a War Dancer to stay on the ball carrier or next door to the ball carrier, and this works for Snotlings too, is you've got to be so careful when you block a player with Sidestep, because it's going to end up with them being able to move. And if they don't go down, you could end up with that player on the ball carrier, and in the worst place for you. If you watched any of the Bonehead Championship and you've seen how the 2 old Tiny Titans got on, there were so many opportunities created by those Snotlings just dancing around using Sidestep to get themselves into really good positions. Doesn't come up all the time, but the other thing to mention about Sidestep is very useful if you're going to try and score a 1-turn touchdown. You basically get to force a push into your player, and then you get to choose the best angle of attack for them. So Sidestep can be really useful if you're going for a 1-turn touchdown. When it comes to a chain push situation, if you're going to be throwing a dude, it's not all that useful. But Sidestep is great. No defensive qualities. You have to get punched for it to work, which is risky. But man, it is so useful when it happens. Number 4 for me is Diving Tackle. Now, this skill is underutilized and I think underappreciated. So Diving Tackle allows you as a player, so if you are in base contact with somebody who's dodging away, jumping away, or leaping away, you let them roll the dice, you let them roll that agility test, whether it's a dodge or a leap roll, whatever. And once they've rolled it, if it's successful, you can place your dude prone, the guy who's got the guy who's got diving tackle, and they get -2 to that die roll. So if they are a elf and they're jumping into the open and you've got a guy with diving tackle on, that goes from a 2+ open field dodge to a 4+ open field dodge. And if they roll a 1, you don't even need to use the skill. If they roll a 3, or if they roll a 2 or a 3, you just place your guy prone and they fail that dodge test. Now, what I believe the sequence is they take that roll, and if they've got dodge or a team reroll, they roll it again, but they still apply that modifier. So diving tackle is a really underutilized skill because it is essentially -2 to dodge away from a player with diving tackle. Now, it leaves your guy on the ground prone, so it's not always incredibly useful, but I'd very happily take a prone player to cause a turnover, because that's exactly what's going on here. And that is with elves. If you imagine any other player that's dodging around, -2 is absolutely huge. Now, this will combo great with a couple of other skills. It combos brilliantly with tackle because it means that they don't have an integral reroll. If you've got prehensile tail or armbar, it is going to be really useful as well. Also, if you've got jump up, you'll be able to get up for free in the next turn, so you don't actually lose any movement. It's a really interesting skill. Now, when we think about safeties and people who are going to be marking people who are likely to be dodging, we think, right, prehensile tail is sweet, tackle's great, forces them to take the rerolls, but diving tackle is an underutilized skill. It's agility, so this is the kind of skill you see spammed in a stunty environment, okay? I've played a couple of stunty cups, Mana Bowl stunty cup, and diving tackle is a heck of a skill. Everybody's just so used to 2+, 3++ dodging around. Very difficult when it's a 5+ or a 6+ dodge. Being able to use this skill after they've rolled is massive as well. So for me, diving tackle, number 4 agility skill. Number 3 is jump up. Now 3 is the amount of squares you have to pay to stand up if you're prone, unless you have jump up. If you've got jump up, it costs you 0 squares to stand up. So if you are a movement 6 guy and you've got jump up and you're on the ground, you are still movement 6. If you are a movement 3 guy with jump up, you get up for free. But what it also means is that you can make a block. Normally, if your guy is prone on the ground and you want to block somebody, it has to be the blitz action because you have to pay 3 squares to get up and blitz. The beautiful addition here with jump up is that they can jump up and block without using your blitz action, but you have to pass an agility test at +1, and there's no modifiers to this agility test. So on most players, this is going to be anything but a 1. They can take a block. Now, the Norse Berserker, I think, has jump up, so you're going to be able to just block a guy next door to you, stand up on a 2+. Witch Elf as well, I think, has got jump up, so again, it's a cheeky 2+ to make that block. Now, combo is really great with a couple of pieces. Wrestle is brilliant here because you're going to be on the ground. So if you get to use your wrestle skill, this also works brilliantly with diving tackle. You're going to be on the ground prone. Being able to get up for no squares at all basically takes away most of the disadvantage of that skill. High movement players are going to love this as well. A gutter runner with jump up or a slan catcher with jump up, it gives them so much range. You know, movement 9 and movement 6 are very different speeds. If that gutter runner can get up and still move 9 squares, it's just a huge amount of speed. And the other great thing about this is it works really well with what I call paratroopers. So a stunty player whose sole job is to be thrown into the opponent's field when you are defending, and that dude's job is just to 1, survive the impact, and then 2, just to run around using the stunty skill to get you places that's just going to really upset your opponent. Jump up is a great skill for that. You can throw them if they don't land and they haven't activated and their armor isn't broken. Well, they're still movement 6, they're still movement 5, whatever it is. So jump up is a really useful skill. I guess the downside here is that, very similar to Sidestep, something has to go wrong for jump up to work. If your player never hits the deck, this skill does nothing for you. So you kind of you've got 3 different zones. You want it on a player that you want to stay fast forever. Okay, a scoring threat. You want it on a player that's likely to be in combat and is going to take a bit of a beating. So whether they've got wrestle, whether they're just going to be frenzying around and there's a high likelihood they're going to end up on the ground. And also that paratrooper thing. So jump up is an incredibly useful skill. It never feels like the first one you want to take, but it is one it will always feel great when you've got it. But again, it falls into that same trap of something needs to go wrong for it needs to be effective. But still, jump up for me, number 3. Number 2 is sure feet. Now, this is going to surprise probably none of you out there. I love to go fast. That's right, Ricky Bobby style. And this is something that came up quite a lot in your suggestions, so I was very much happy to see this. So, Sure Feet is a skill that lets you re-roll failed rush attempts. That's it. That's all it does. Now, if you're rushing or going for it, if you're playing old school Blood Bowl, or sprinting, I guess, is the old school version of it, you, generally speaking, need to roll a 2+. So if you roll a 1, Sure Feet is going to allow you to get that re-roll. There was a great couple of comments. A few people said this. It's basically +2 movement. And it really, really is. You can rush. And when it comes to using this, this is just monumental. There is another skill, but spoiler alert, it's not going to be on this list, but fits in the same category, which is Sprint. Now, Sprint is a great skill. It allows you to rush one additional time. But having the integral reroll here on Sure Feet, it's always going to be risky. You've always got that 1 in, 36 chance of it going wrong, so 3%. But this is going to help you massively. And by putting Sure Feet on a player, it takes them from movement 5 to movement 7. Okay, it takes them from movement 7 to movement 9. There is no rushes after that, but what it does mean is you can always afford to rush. And this is a skill that when I used to run Ogres a lot on Blood Bowl 2, I'd use Sure Feet as basically one of the first skills I'd give to my Noblars, because that just makes them movement 7. And when you've got a bunch of little dudes Sure Feet and sidestepping, titchy dodging, movements, it's huge. It's 2 turns. It's like, I'm just going to walk up and take some Sure Feet, Sure Feet, Sure Feet. Yeah, great. And next turn, I'll just move up and a couple of dodges, Sure Feet, Sure Feet, Sure Feet. Don't even need rerolls because I'm already doing it. And when it comes to go for it, they only really ever fail on a 1. Maybe if there's a weather effect or a pitch effect, it will get slightly worse. Is it like there's like a mole attack on the lure to Nuffle, prayers to Nuffle? But it just takes it from 1 in 6 to 1 in 36, and it saves you team rerolls, and you can just rely really heavily on it. Sure Feet is +2 movement most of the time. It's always going to be risky, but this just takes that risk factor and gets it gone. Number 1 is Dodge. This is, again, going to be absolutely no surprise to anybody. Dodge is just... It might be the best skill in the game. It does 2 things. You get to reroll failed dodge tests, which is going to be massive most of the time. Now, it's really difficult. If you've got Dodge and you are Edge 3+, you can take a dodge. If you're Edge 2+ and you've got Dodge, you can always take a dodge. It's basically automatic. If you're Edge 3+ and you've got any kind of negative modifier, even with dodge, it doesn't feel good. Okay, but that 2+, 3++ dodge is brilliant. And that's where goblins are so successful, with that 3++ dodge element to it. Or the titchy little dudes like snotlings who get 2+ dodging everywhere with a dodge reroll. It just means that you can push stuff. You can just do things you shouldn't be able to do. And you've got this invulnerable save. The additional thing here about dodge is that you've got that defensive system when you get punched in the face, and this I know has kept a million stunty players alive throughout the time. There's 2 pals on a dice. One of them's got an asterisk. No, one of them's got an exclamation mark. One of them doesn't. The exclamation mark gets turned into a push if you've got dodge. Straight up dodge is essentially -1 to hit, because it is -1 face on the dice to hurt you. And it's just amazing. And you see this with decent strength players. So War Dancer with block and dodge means you have to hit that open star to drop them down. When it comes to goblins, you're always going to be 2 blocking a goblin. But, okay, if I got 1 dice and I can get open star or stumble, okay? Or I've got 2 dice and I can get open star, it basically keeps them the same, you know, around the same odds to be dropped down to the ground. It's huge. Dodge is just one of the best skills in the game. It keeps players alive, and there are times where it just keeps them so mobile, it's crazy. And I put in there as a combo for this, people who are going to get blocked, people who are going to be wanting to move around and dodge. Dodge, just the best. Number 1, agility skill. Okay, so that was my top 5, and there is a ton of great skills out there that I haven't included here, and it's really difficult because there's a bunch of them that are really good. So one of the probably most frequent ones I got out here, when it came to you guys suggesting things, dodge was up there, sidestep was up there, sure feet was up there. Jump up was up there. Sprint got mentioned a lot of times, and again, we've already talked about it. It's a great skill. It allows you to speed up, but it does increase that risk factor, so I think the sure feet element puts it in there. Diablo Slay 2 said catch is 100% going to be heavily underrated in most people's lists. And you know what? It probably is. Catch is a really weird one. As a free skill in a catcher or in a nobility blitzer, it's amazing. I can take 4+ catch with that guy, and I know it's going to be okay, and it really helps. And when you're planning a goblin roster, if you want a 1-turn touchdown piece, then actually somebody having catch, it just means it's one less reroll for you to use. Catch is a difficult skill though, and it's very similar to sure hands in the way that it is really good. In fact, it's exactly the same as sure hands. It just, how often is it going to come up? Sure feet, dodge, you can use that probably every turn. Catch, you're going to be using it once or twice a game if everything lines up. So catch is a phenomenally useful skill, but you kind of tie that player to that role if you use it. That's why it wasn't on my top 5. Sneaky Git, great. Connor Melville says, Sneaky Git, great tool for fouling. With the changes 2020 allowing drive-by fouls, it makes it feel so good. So Sneaky Git allows you to make a foul on a guy on the ground and then carry on moving afterwards, and it also means unless you break the armor, the doubles don't count, which is phenomenally useful for keeping stuff kicking around. What else was there that I think was really good there? Richard Alderson said, a slight curveball, safe pair of hands, dropping the ball in the square of your choosing is potentially very useful. All these skills are useful. You just don't want to have to use that skill. It's like dump off. It's the kind of skill that's great, but you'd really rather it never came up at all. And Paul Harrison, solid point here, defensive. Shove a Snotling or Nobbler on the line to frustrate bashy opponents. And defensive is a new skill for this edition. And if you've got a player with defensive in base contact with a player with guard, guard gets turned off. That's a bit of an oversimplification. It's a great skill, but when it comes to agility, if you've got a agility player with defensive, they're likely to just punch the dude with defensive, which is great, but it can be fun, I think, in leagues, and it can be fun in tournaments where there's a lot of guard, or you're expecting a lot of guard spam, because the little defensive guy gets in there and just switches off other skills. That's really cool. I don't know. The agility skills, there's a ton of good stuff going on there, and it really does depend what you're doing and what player you're doing it with, and it's probably one of the most difficult top 5s for this, because it does flex massively depending on which player you're giving to. That's why my top 5 was a bit generic, because actually I feel all those points are valid for combat players, for scoring players, and for stunty players, and that's basically every player in the world except a big guy, and a dodge big guy is a pretty mighty thing anyway. Oh, sidestep Minotaur. That's the dream. Anyway, guys, I'm going to wrap up the video. Thank you very much for watching. Let me know in the comments what you think of my top 5 versus your top 5. And we'll be back soon with more Blood Bowl content. Happy blocking. Thanks very much for watching. We really appreciate your support. If you want to help support the channel even further, please like and subscribe, or come join us on our Patreon. We have early access to content. We get loads of feedback from you guys, and we try and do competitions as much as we can. Or you can get yourself some Bonehead podcast merch on our Spreadshirt site. So if you want to support a team, especially for the Bonehead Championship, you can pick up a shirt, a mug, things like that. It all helps support the channel, and we really appreciate it. Anyway, links below. Thank you very much. Happy blocking.